Welcome to the Never-Ending Backlog Podcast, your place for short reviews from a gamer with the goal of reducing his backlog. From adventures to sandboxes, join our host as we walk through a collection of unplayed treasures. Now, let's take a look at the featured game of this episode of the Never-Ending Backlog.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Never Ending Backlog Podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and today we'll be reviewing kind of a indie game maker-esque type of game. I will probably butcher this name, and if the developer is listening, I am truly sorry. I think I understand what it's supposed to be, but I'm going to butcher it. I'm sorry. So it's Labyrinthine Dreams. So it's spelled like labyrinth. And then it's got a thine at the end. So Thine at the end. Props. The very first thing I noticed about this game, and I'm just going to jump right into it. This is going to be kind of more of an emotional podcast. And I don't mean for this to be. And I try to keep my personal life a little bit more out of this. But, you know, this game's going to tug on some heartstrings a little bit. But first of all, you know, the game started off on windowed mode. You know, it had no full screen. Actually, no options whatsoever. So no options. There was no, like, you can push escape or anything. Like, you have to click on the X to exit windowed screen. So, you know, you can tell it's kind of a game maker-esque type of game. It's definitely from a kind of a new developer. But you know what? If you are new, even if you're not, props. Congratulations on doing it. I think it worked effectively. I was able to play it immediately. I didn't have to do anything. It loaded right up. It was phenomenal. It played in windowed mode, which worked out really well because I had mentioned that earlier when it comes to the 5760 by 1080 resolution that my computer runs. Most games, they try to force it, and it doesn't run because it's not optimized. So then it just fails. So, developer, whoever you are, I think I've actually seen your profile. But anyway, whoever you are, well done. Well done for doing it. Well done for making it. Be proud of it. I think it's great. The woods and the leaves look really nice. It reminds me of the deep woods in my favorite game of all time. So here you go. You ready for this? My favorite game of all time. And very similar to movies and music. It'll change every time you ask me, but I think this one still probably will hold out forever. Ready for it? Stardew Valley. Whew. Man, that game, I play it every day. I love this game. Stardew Valley, phenomenal. There's so much about it that is so rich. It reminds me, I know they made it, I think, based on a town in Europe, you know, like the seasons, all that stuff, but it reminds me of my home state of Michigan. It has all the seasons. It has music that is the most beautifully composed music of all time. In fact, so much so that I own all 4 seasons on vinyl and I listen to it. Yes, I collect vinyl, but you know what? It's beautiful. And you know what the even better thing about that is? When I bought this, okay, there's going to be a couple parts for this. So this isn't the heart tug string. I'm going to get to that later on, but I will always go on a tangent about Stardew Valley, so bear with me. So 2 things really. One, the developer is amazing. I'll go into that in just about 5 seconds. But when the update was released, they actually, after I'd already bought the vinyl, they gave me the MP3 codes for all the new songs that were added in the update for free. They sent me. Now, would I have rather had a whole other vinyl? Sure, but they never released it on vinyl. And honestly, thank you for having the MP3. It's one of the few things I actually download, which is the MP3 of Stardew Valley. Because Humble Bundle, when you buy those games, they will give you soundtracks for a lot of the indie games. And the thing is, I barely download them. I don't really have physical, or not physical, like I don't have downloaded MP3s. I use Spotify and you know, Apple Music and stuff like that. I really don't have a need for an MP3, but something about throwing Stardew Valley on my Plex server is magic. Ugh, just seriously. Even if you don't play Stardew Valley, just listen to the music. It's composed beautifully for an electronic PC game. Check it out. But anyway, the developer, like I said, is amazing. There is a great story about, you know, how he kind of turned down studios and he just did it himself. and just all this work that put into it. I think that's amazing how he did it. You know, it is just a remarkable game. It's one of those little stories, and there's a lot of stories on it. Read it. It's what made me start this podcast, where I just want to appreciate games and the amount of effort that goes into every single one of them. Every game has effort, because even if you make a terrible game, you're going to spend more time promoting that terrible game to get people to even give it a chance. So even that takes a lot of effort. I know. I'm in marketing. It's a terrible effort sometimes. So props to all developers out there. Developer Stardew Valley, well done. I'd love to have you on my podcast one day. Who knows? Maybe one day it'll happen. Oh, dream. Anyway, really cool game series. I highly recommend reading the story about it. There's also another interesting story, real quick tangent, about the creators of Bejeweled. When that came out, they installed a bell. I believe it was a bell or a siren. I think it was a bell that would basically ding every time they got a sale, which, you know, started off pretty slow. It started, you know, building up. And then eventually it picked up and the bell was on constantly. So it's just a complete ring that they eventually just had to unplug because they were making so many sales. Can you imagine that? Man, how great must that feel? It'd be like me going right now to my podcast on Buzzsprout and be like, oh, your latest episode had like 1 million listens. And you're just like, what? Why? What are you guys doing with your life that you want to listen to me talk about my backlog? Anyway, it's cool. Anyway, we're jumping back to Labyrinthine Dreams. Hope I didn't butcher that. The woods and the leaves, so that entire map, is very similar to the dark woods in Stardew Valley. Leaves flow gently. The trees are really bright and vivid. There's a lot of small details, medical details. If I were to make a game, and there are games in my head that I have that I one day I'll work with a developer or learn to do it myself. I'll get into that some other podcast. But if I were to do it, I'd want it like this. I'd want lush forests, leaves falling, make it around fall, spring, kind of a Michigan weathered theme, Midwest. I love it. It's phenomenal. So well done. It looks really nice. It is a very deep game. And you might have heard when I was saying about the details is there's a lot of medical details in these woods. And basically you're playing as a woman who has cancer and who's basically fighting for her life. And it's kind of like this weird dream state kind of a situation, coma situation. It's a deep game. And it's hard to do those type of games. You know, it's hard to play those type of games for me. Cancer, not to get too deep, but cancer has stricken my family very much, unfortunately. My mother passed away. Well, my aunt passed away when I was young. Didn't really understand it. My grandfather passed away. My grandmother's second husband passed away. And then in high school, my mother passed away. And within a week, my grandfather, her father, passed away from cancer as well. And then since then, I've lost other aunts, other grandfathers. Cancer's just been a terrible influence on my family, unfortunately. So whenever I do anything with cancer, it usually makes me think about my family, my mom especially. And it gets pretty emotional. So although this game looks like it was made on Game Maker, if you've dealt with cancer, it might tug at your heartstrings a little bit. So just prepare for it. It's not a super emotional game. I didn't get a super emotional from it, but it does make you think, you know? And it's an interesting idea about fighting being out of a coma by walking in these woods, because basically what the principle is you are playing as a woman stuck in a coma. I think if I'm butchering this, I'm so sorry, but I know you have cancer. I know you're fighting it, and you're listening to stories of loved ones talk. So I know all those things remain true. But anyway, there's these labyrinths that are, quite sprawling, and you have a certain set of controls. And you'll realize the pattern. Actually, I'll say this. I did not realize the pattern until probably the next level. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes way more sense now. So, but there is a pattern. It does seem to carry over through the level. I'm not going to say what the pattern is. Figure it out yourself. I think it's fun. But there's a pattern of your controls to navigate through these mazes. And you can't do them the same way. It's challenging. It's fun. It's a puzzle game. So it's overall really, really well. The buttons are pretty straightforward. It's the arrow keys. I think Z is what the action is, and I think X resets it. So it resets the maze because you can get stuck in corners, and it will happen a lot, and it'll be frustrating. And it's supposed to be like her challenge where she knows where she needed to go through, but she might not have full control. So there's some deep parts to this game, but I think that's pretty cool. I'm trying to think. We'll go through my notes real quick. You can. Oh my goodness! What the game? Oh yeah. Okay. So sorry. I'll try to clean this one up a little bit, but it's similar to if you've ever been to Barnes and Noble or really any board game store or really any store, I guess. In the board game section, there's always like this little row of puzzles, and they could be wooden puzzles or metal puzzles, and there's these little hand puzzles that have a certain way to accomplish them, to kind of get out or whatever, or to release something, or maybe it's like your grandparents. Sometimes they will buy you those little, some of them do, I'm not saying all grandparents do it, but some grandparents, they will buy you like these little plastic maze boxes that have a marble in them or a bearing in them that you have to kind of adjust and navigate through this maze, and then it opens up a lock to actually get money out. A lot of grandparents do it. My in-laws do it for me. I think it's super fun. That's kind of what this game does. I will say, it like I said, similar to that, you just want to be done with it, and you just want your money out of your maze, and it just doesn't work, so it gets frustrating. This game will frustrate you. I'm saying it. This game's frustrating. I'm not going to say it's going to be as frustrating as Cancer would be. I hope that's not what the developer's trying to get out of this. I'm pretty sure that's not. But it's a frustrating game. It really is. The audio is good. Sounds good. The one thing I thought was really interesting is it does have like text across the screen where someone like reading and talking. It's like the father and the daughter and all that stuff. It has all these different components. They actually have voice actors rather than just, text on the screen. So I think that's pretty cool. I'd be curious to know who the voice actors are. I don't know if they paid for them or it's someone they know. I think that's pretty neat thought process. So I think that's really well done. The game is made by Solest Games, Solest Games. The best price is 49 cents. The current price is $1.99. I likely got this one on an Indie Gala. So indiegala.com, which is a kind of similar to Fanatical and Humble Bundle. The difference is it basically just sells indie games for really cheap. Like sometimes free, sometimes 49 cents. Overall, really cheap. So definitely check it out. If you like indie games, this is for you. If you want inspiration on building a game, I think I'd check it out as well. It runs really well. You would not know it's a Game Maker game unless you played with Game Maker, or it might be RPG Maker. It's definitely a basic type of game, but it's really well done and it's clean. I'll say it right now. It's a clean game. It ran extremely well. You could tell there was heart and passion put into the game, and you could tell it's deep, and it makes you wonder, the developer probably went through some stuff and is, translating that into a game. And that's what games all about. It's about translating those feelings. It's just like art. It's translating those emotions, those feelings, things that you can't always put on words, and put it into a game and kind of translating those emotions so someone else can feel it by playing your game. And it's an amazing experience. Really well done. Very small. Obviously, it runs in windowed mode. It could probably run on Windows 95 very easily. I will likely keep it installed for a little bit because I'm frustrated because I want to beat it. I'm not really following the storyline as much. I just want to beat it. I know I can beat it. I just want to beat it. So I'll keep it installed. I'll probably beat it. Then I'll uninstall it. I'll always have fond memories of it. Maybe one day I'll reach out to the actual developer of it, have a conversation, get him or her on a future episode. I think it's pretty fun. So anyway, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Never Ending Backlog Podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and today we reviewed Labyrinthine Dreams. And once again, I am sorry for butchering your game name. Have a nice day.